am really excited to announce today Lessons Learned, Web 2 Moving into Blockchain, Finding Trust in Web 3 and Embracing Industry Transformation. So we've got a really all-star lineup for you. It's Michael, the CEO of Polygon Labs, Christian, Senior VP FinTech and Crypto Enablement Europe, Mastercard, David, partner at Dracoon Ventures, and Elise, Digital and Web3 Communications Director at Christian Louboutin. So, without further ado, I'll be your moderator for today. I'm Megan Nilsson, I go by Crypto Megan, and please give a warm round of applause for our panelists. Got a little bit of a different setup for you guys today. Actually, one of our panelists will be joining virtually, and that'll be Michael, the COO of Polygon. So in order to kick this panel off, I'd like to do an introduction round, and we'll start with you, Elise, and then we'll finish with Michael, who will join us afterwards. And just tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your company and your position and all of that.
Hello, thank you for having me. I see familiar faces here, it's very lovely. I'm Elise, I've been working in the digital industry for the past, I don't want to say anymore, 22-something years. And in luxury for the past 17 years with the like of Chanel or Louis Vuitton. And now I've been 5 years with Christian Louboutin, where I mostly look after the good old Web 2 and most recently Web 3, which I've been involved with for as long as can be potentially.
There you go. Amazing. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christian. Thanks for having me. I'm heading our fintech and business development for crypto for Mastercard in Europe. I have been with the company for 11 years. Mastercard, I think, the brand name everybody should know. We're doing digital payments around the world and obviously looking at crypto and blockchain also. Very good to be here.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name is David. I'm managing partner of my own advisory firm called Dracoon Ventures. I'm also a venture partner at Greenfield Capital, which is a leading crypto investment firm in Berlin. Prior to that, I was head of global BD at Binance for the NFT marketplace. And I've been in the industry for, since '99, so I know Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And right now, as an advisor, my role is basically to help companies succeed in the Web3 space and avoid terrible mistakes.
Well, that's pretty necessary, right? Avoiding crashing and burning as we navigate through this new technology. And today you get to hear from these Web2 mega brands. And we're welcoming Michael, the CEO of Polygon, to the stage. Michael, welcome.
Hi there. Apologies
Hi.
for not being there in person. I'm here from sunny California. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
And thank you for having me. I spent the last almost 20 years at Electronic Arts, one of the biggest video game companies in the world, in various senior leadership positions, and was always pushing EA into new dimensions of social and business model and metaverse, and that led me to the world of Web3, where I felt like I could have a much bigger impact, and we could have a much bigger impact on players' lives. But as I've learned, it's actually an impact on the entire world. And so I'm excited to be here to talk about how Web 2 brands can emerge into the world of Web 3.
Amazing. Thank you for that awesome intro. And actually, that segues me into my first, topic of discussion, which is Web 2 mega brands leading the way and paving the way for others to get involved in the sector. And one of those sectors that's been pioneering the space are luxury brands. And so, Elise, I'd like to start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about how the luxury brands have been some of the first to embrace this Web3 technology and how you've been navigating that space.
I think in order to do that, we need to take a step back and come back on what luxury brands have been going through in the past 15 years or so. Digitally speaking, we already saw two revolutions. The first revolution was e-commerce that started beginning of the 20s, and all the brands getting there. And for luxury brands, it was particularly difficult, how to consider that all of a sudden a customer would buy online without touching, because it's so important, right? Without seeing the product and the mere fact to put the price on display on the internet sounded at the time totally unthinkable, because in the store, if you go to Chanel or if you go to any kind of luxury store, you do not necessarily have the prices. But we had to do it, and I have to say for some of the brands it was a bit slow to adopt, and the adoption was made not necessarily easy. Then around the years 2009, 2010 came the second revolution, social media, and the first platform that we had to be on was Facebook. And Facebook is blue. Facebook is not really the platform that has the same look and feel as the traditional luxury brand, and there's nothing you can do about it. And when you come from a luxury brand and you're used to controlling everything, when you do advertising, you control where you appear in a TV tunnel, you control everything. All of a sudden, you have to lose your control, right? And you have to be in the Facebook feed where you can appear amongst an ad from pizza or any kind of post from any given topic. So that was kind of a breakthrough, second breakthrough. And here again, most of the luxury brands have a hard time for adoption. Why do I speak about that? It's because the third revolution that we're about to see, that we're seeing, is Web3. And for all of us, I guess, in the room, we've been experiencing Web3 for some years now, but it really started going mainstream only in 2021 when Meta got rebranded, and all of a sudden everyone started speaking about it. And luxury brands, they're people working at luxury brands, they're deciding people, they're probably my age, they've seen, all of these revolutions, and they understood that we could not miss that one. Plus, there were a number of elements that Web3 has in common with luxury. Among them, you have scarcity, creativity, if we think about metaverse, AR, VR, that are elements of what can be done in a Web3 too. And the fact that, it's a bit hard to navigate, it's just for a happy few, it seems so. So these elements helped us, I think, embracing Web3 to start with, and I got that we all saw the potential, and we'll come to discuss about it later on with the trust factor, but within the luxury brand, I think the adoption was a bit easier than the two first main revolutions, because we saw what was there for us.
It was kind of an extension or an elevation of what's already there.
Exactly.
And enhancing that experience that we've talked about backstage. It's all about the experience in a luxury brand, right? And giving value back to your clients and clientele. So we're going to come back to that, but it's really interesting to know the beginnings of getting involved and how you navigated that, and the similarities yet differences. I want to segue over to Christian from Mastercard, and we were speaking about Mastercard being the flagship name of payment processors and payment rails. Trust is a huge factor for you. I mean, this is everything in that industry, and how are you able to communicate with your customers and kind of transition into this new world with the traditional Web 2 infrastructure?
So yeah, indeed, trust is quintessential, because our customers, as in the banks, because we don't issue cards ourselves, banks do that on our behalf, but regulators, merchants, the entire ecosystem is very much focused on stability of value, trust, consumer protection, and all of these things. These are what we stand for, and this has been our key paradigm for the last 50, 60 odd years, because that hasn't changed. The underlying technology has changed. Very few people in the room will still know these imprinter for cards, but then there was different technology evolutions, Mac stripes, chip, e-commerce, and all of these things. And of course the technology has evolved, but the mission statement to enable these safe, simple, secure payments has been very consistent. And in that sense, this is also very true to what we're doing today in Web3. So we're not prescriptive about technology. We don't tell people you should buy NFTs or you should invest in crypto and then spend it. What we're saying, our role is really to make it accessible in a safe, simple, secure, easy to use way. And that's really what we are focusing on. That's what we're enabling, and we are basically using the structures, processes, technology, and partnerships that we've built up over the last couple of decades actually, to also transpose them into what is blockchain, Web3, DLT. And our role is also very much connecting the dots in that space, because things like on-ramping, off-ramping, all of these things, they're happening via cards a lot. And that's where we can bring this scalability, the resilience, and the security, basically. And the combination of this resilience, stability, and security, basically, I guess, constitutes trust at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And the things I'm sticking with what you said are safe, simple, and secure. So a lot of times in Web3, and coming from someone who's deeply entrenched in Web3, it's kind of like, okay, we're in this new iteration of the internet, and forget the rest, right? But what we've heard throughout this whole seminar and this whole event is that the Web2 tech and the infrastructure is essential in onboarding the big players and having that infrastructure to power the things that are happening in Web3. So really, the best of these worlds would be to converge the two and have a seamless, frictionless bridge so that we can enable this to everybody. And by allowing them to pay with card, you've made it more simple. You made it simpler, and people don't have to necessarily even understand that they're using blockchain technology. And in that, I'd like to segue to you, Michael, from Polygon, that you guys have, we were talking backstage also about the Starbucks example, that Polygon has been able to onboard some of the biggest Web2 brands into the space and power their infrastructure. And so how were you able to establish that trust with the big players, and what has been like navigating that for Polygon?
A good question. We've had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies in the world, Starbucks being one, but others including Reddit and Nike and Dolce & Gabbana and Ferrari and Mercedes and airlines, and I think you can name a company in the top tier of businesses globally, Mastercard being one of them as well. Thank you, Mastercard. And I think there's a number of things that are important to big brands as they make their foray into the world of Web3, especially as they're looking to underlying infrastructure such as that delivered by Polygon. There's a number of things that are important to them. First, ensuring transparent communication. I couldn't emphasize that enough. How we create open lines of communication around technology, advancements in technology, innovation, how that technology is utilized, all of that is critical to them. I think big brands have an expectation around how they utilize software that's delivered to them in a way that they experience in the Web 2 world. Emphasizing reliability and security, of course, we've already spoken about that. That is just a foundational component of working with a large Web 2 company. Prioritizing security, especially in this space, given what's happened over the last little while. Security is paramount, as is regulatory compliance. Those things are critical. Engaging with the community. How we support developers and engage the community is also critical. And ultimately, network effects. One of the reasons why big brands enter into the world of Web3 is so they can have, one, a direct relationship with their consumer, but also because of the network effects associated with entering into a relationship with their customer and all of the customers that are enabled through an interoperable ecosystem, such as that provided within a blockchain or Web3 world. And so, again, part of joining Polygon is that you enter into a world where you're participating with the biggest brands in the world, all of whom are consuming content, are engaging socially, are engaging in gaming, are buying tickets, are consuming phygital and digital connected experiences in the fashion world. Those are all things that all consumers are looking for, and those are all interconnected experiences. All of those things are critical in that delivery of that Web 2 brand relationship.
Wow, yeah, that was an amazing response, and I think you tied all the loose ends together and connected the dots there, and that these brands are associating Polygon now with that trust because of the big names, and that's something that the big brands coming into the space do for the rest of the ecosystem, is they provide that trust. They're paving the way for other brands to follow suit and setting the standard and the foundation for that to happen. So that's pretty incredible to see, and it takes a lot. It's a lot of responsibility to be the power to all of these big Web 2 players, and so you've been doing quite an excellent job at navigating that space. So thank you for that. And I'd like to segue now onto a different sector from with David from Dracoon Ventures. You have had a lot of exposure with gaming, and gaming has been something that's coming up around the world that I've seen at many different places, and it's all about, you know, that's going to be one of the main drivers of adoption. However, there's been a lot of resistance from gamers within Web3. I don't know how many of you are gamers in the audience, but who I've talked to in the traditional gaming world, they've been really resistant to what's happening in Web3, and for several different reasons. But I'd like to get your opinion on that, having had that exposure.
So your question is, why is there resistance?
First of all, yeah, where does the resistance come from?
So I think if you take a look at the history of gaming, and I was in the industry since '99, so as I said, I witnessed, for instance, the trend from pay-to-play towards free-to-play. Everyone hated free-to-play. People said, it's a scam. What are you doing? I just want to pay $20. That's it. Don't rip me off with any virtual items. It's really ugly and so forth. Free-to-play games, actually, at the time, the very first game that was really commercial success was Cartwriter. So Koreans developed free-to-play. The same resistance I saw with mobile. The first mobile games were really bad. Doodle Jump, and you could argue Angry Birds is quite a good game, to be honest. But like the majority of mobile games were really, really bad. You could literally take 30,000 development budget and develop a game, and the quality was really, really bad. And then even when it came to RPG games or MMORPG games, people were saying, no one with decent, pride actually plays an MMORPG on a mobile device or a shooter or something like that. You don't never do that. Nowadays people do that, So mobile has become a very high-end device for a lot of games. So I think there's the initial resistance. Now talking about Web3, why is there resistance? Ubisoft was, of course, there are so many different streams. Like number one is the ESG criticism, which is kind of unfortunate. People saying blockchains are bad for the environment and so forth. So that was another one. Another thing was basically NFTs are a scam. So people are actually ripping off users by just selling NFTs and not delivering on products, actually. And to be honest, there is a lot to that. Because I have witnessed a lot of Web3 companies who have sold millions and millions and millions of NFTs to users, and we're still waiting for the games, so where are they? And you see like a bunch of hippies, a bunch of young lads are actually just really literally have ripped off users, and we're still, I'm sure we're not even going to see games that have sold millions of NFTs for the next 3-4 years, because simply the teams that you look at do not have a track record of having built successful titles. I was approached on LinkedIn the other day, like 2 days ago, and with a pitch deck, hey, we're Web3 games and so forth. I asked a simple question. What was the most previous successful title any of your team members has developed as a lead producer? And the answer was none. Of course, and this is the recipe for failure, right? So I think the resistance towards that kind of like what's going on in the NFT space in Web3 gaming is to a certain degree also understandable. And so we need more sophisticated developers from free-to-play going into Web3, and I see that coming more and more. So a lot of the developers that I speak to personally are making the decision between should I go develop the next free-to-play game or should I go Web3? So it's a little bit of a split decision these days.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And again,
actually?
yeah, no, please interject. Yes.
Yeah, I think everything you just said is absolutely correct. But just to add a little bit, I think we're at an inflection point over the next 3 to 6 months, where we will see legitimate games emerge, and already some have emerged in the marketplace. And you spoke about Korea. Nexon has announced they're building on Polygon. They're evolving MapleStory Universe with blockchain experiences to enable ownership. MapleStory is one of the most storied MMORPGs in the world, globally, ever in history. They are deeply embracing the world of blockchain and what it can offer. And I think we're seeing that across a number of major developers, including Playtika, Square Enix, Sega, Ubisoft. And I can tell you that there are hundreds of games in development. They're taking a little longer, but I don't think every experience will be a pure blockchain experience. I think just like free-to-play or like anything in mobile or any other business model in gaming, they're always hybridized. And so I think we should expect to see experiences that include components of subscription, of free-to-play, of fully paid games, games where you can buy and own in games, trade and share. I think all of these things are being enabled, and they're all coming. And I'm confident that gamers, and I've been in the gaming industry now for over 20 years, these changes take time, and the evolution takes time. So I expect this will happen, and I expect gamers will come to embrace it, just like they've embraced free-to-play and mobile in the past.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is embracing the technology. It takes time for this new vision, this new way of doing things to set in and to the adoption. I mean, it just takes time. And so I also believe, we've all discussed that gaming will be one of the biggest drivers of adoption, but I think one of the most difficult things is to envision how it's going to be possible when we're seeing so much resistance. But we have to remember that this is always part of a new technology adoption curve, right? And so I also want to go back to the point where, and that'll bring me back to Mastercard as well, that the traditional systems, the Web2 infrastructure, I want to emphasize this because a lot of people in the Web3 ecosystem are resistant to converge the two, but they're actually pretty necessary in that adoption on a mainstream scale, right? And building that trust. You gave me a really excellent example backstage about where we are at the rate of adoption around the world.
So, I mean, there's always statistics about blockchain adoption, DLT, and depends on how you define it, but I made my choice and I accept the number of 4.2%. I heard that 4.2% of the global population engage in anything crypto blockchain related. And of course, they do so for different reasons in different parts of the world. If you're living in El Salvador or Nigeria or other parts of Africa where the financial system doesn't make you whole and you want to transfer money quite like you did for different reasons than you would do it in parts of Europe. And for us, the question is always, how can we move from 4 to 14 or 42? And again, we are not prescriptive about it. We are not saying people should do this, but we're saying if people want to do it, they should be able to do it in a safe, simple, and secure way. And in many aspects, buying NFTs, getting fiat money into crypto wallet, for me, very much feels like engaging with MP3s before the iPod was there. It's a very complex, fractured user journey, not very self-explanatory. And our approach and our mission statement basically is we want to have a user experience that's closer to what you experience, or all of us experience when you use your iPhone for making purchases in stationary point of sale or in e-com, that you have that seamless user experience. And that's one of the things I think we can speak to very credibly. People don't care about the underlying technology. People couldn't care whether a card is tokenized or whether it's EMV or whatnot, right? It sits on my iPhone or Android. It's safe. I trust it. I use it. And I think getting back to your point to trust, this is where the industry needs to go in order as to have trust and user experience and compliance, as Mike was mentioning, as a prerequisite for scaling.
Yeah, I think two things are very interesting about what you said. And in the first, people don't care about the technology. And I know this triggers a lot of developers and people who are building and things, but what you're referring to is the fact that the normal person coming outside that's introduced to this for the first time is just going to want to know how it works and be able to use it, right? There are people who are, obviously we care about the technology, but in making it simpler and easy for people to use, and they don't have to necessarily know how it works. I mean, that's how it is in all of the different technologies around the world, right?
Absolutely, and I think that is super important because, I work with Mastercard for 11 years now, and so I'm excited about payments, but nobody else is, right? Because people are excited how they can buy things online, how they can split a bill after dinner with people, how they can consume media, right? It's not for us to tell them how to move from cash to cards, right? You can tell them 10 times, it's not going to happen. People move from cash in riding taxis to cards when they use Uber. They move from cash buying movie theater tickets, when they use Netflix, then they move from cash buying CDs or cards buying MP3s when they use Spotify. So when these whole user journeys are streamlined and are basically attractive and meeting the standards of all of us today, and we are spoiled, right? We have the benefit of not caring about technology because the world is at our fingertips. And I know that a lot of people in blockchain, and that is a good thing, right, take pride in the technology, but I think it should never be an end in itself. It needs to be an enabling factor. It needs to tick all the hygiene boxes, security, compliance, scaling, and so on and so forth. But the average user, if you want to go beyond 4%, it's not going to be, the technology element alone is not going to resonate.
Right, and so the resoundingly clear message here is that we mustn't lose the ethos of what is Web3 and the important parts about it, which are the ownership, which is the freedom to interact freely and the free transfer of value, but perhaps we need to be open to utilizing these Web2 infrastructures that are robust and built for scaling in order to get to where we want to go. Right? And so I think that's very important. And the music industry is a really good example of the evolution of technology. So it's cool that you brought that up. If you haven't seen the playlist on Netflix, it kind of mirrors what we're going through in this sector a little bit. So.
And I think that feeling is reciprocal, right? And I've seen it in fintech because parts of my remit is also fintech, so not only this. And I think the industry has evolved from this question: is it going to be fintech or high street banks? That is a very 2018 question. It's now coexistence, cooperation, and I think the blockchain industry is moving in this direction. And if you look at all these TradFi companies that are experimenting with blockchain or making digital assets accessible to their consumers, there's this openness on the other end of the aisle, or on the other side of the aisle, and I think that's the good thing, and that's what we experience when worlds come together. Typically, that's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah, bridging the gap of the two worlds is what we really need to do in order to get to where we want to go. And correct me if I'm wrong, but early adopter phase then, right? 4.2%.
I would say, and there's a number that I've heard, or there's a fact that I've heard, I'm not sure whether it's true, so don't quote me. I heard that the internet had the same penetration in the population when it was just as old as blockchain is today.
Right.
And the question for me is, when will the hockey sticky end come? And again, I think we heard it from Polygon. People are excited about Mercedes. They like Starbucks. They're the biggest loyalty program. They're all the brands that we heard. They inspire people, and obviously the brands we have on stage, right?
Yes,
if my wife was here, she was,
No,
different story.
over
but I
that.
think really, and if then people realize, wow, that user experience was enabled by blockchain. Wow, I think that's where we need to go.
As a second thought, not as a first thought.
Yeah,
right?
other than a third thought. Exactly.
Yeah. So segueing over to big brands, we're in early adopter phase. So if you heard that, this is still very, very nascent technology, and we have a long way to go to where it's actually fully adopted. So early adopter phase, it's incredible, and Louis Vuitton has been a pioneer in this space and kind of paving the way. I'd like to speak a little bit about a few things that are going on and why you believe that this technology, what kind of value you believe it'll provide ultimately to your clientele, and if you could talk to us a little bit about the digital collectible passport.
That's a very good one. In the luxury industry, as we were saying, we started with blockchain. Most of the luxury brands have had some initiatives in the past couple of years. In beginning of 2021, it was probably around issuing collections of NFTs, whether the profits were given to charities or just for sale. We all pretty much tried a bunch of things. Then came a bit of a slowdown on the speculative value of the NFTs, and because trust is such an important issue when you work for a luxury brand, because our ultimate goal is to be here in 100 years. Like we've been, for some brands, we've been there 100 years already, if you think Chanel, Louis Vuitton, etc. So trust is super important. So when we started, hearing about a number of scandals or scams, everything that you were referring to, David, and FTX, etc., the luxury brands started getting a bit scared probably, because we certainly do not want to lose the trust of our customers. That's ultimately what matters most, right? So there's been a kind of a slowdown in some of the blockchain-related activities. However, we've been seeing a very, very interesting phenomenon that uses blockchain in a whole different way. Now we've had, and I'm sure you know about it, a number of regulations for all, you're very familiar with GDPR, for example, and we started seeing new ones, especially in the textile industry, which make us accountable for our traceability and sustainability, and in a way force us, brands, to put in front of our customers the information about, our raw material, where do our garments come from, when was that done, etc. So there's a choice now that is upon us, either to do it with a Web2 infrastructure, or to start using the blockchain and put information in the blockchain about the product that our end users have been buying. And when you think about it, it makes a whole lot of sense, because if your vendor starts going bankrupt in 2 years, then you lose your information, whether if you've put them in the blockchain, they'll be here forever. If you put them on Polygon, for example, they'll be here forever, right? And this is only the first use case, but you can think about so many use cases that for some of them we don't know about yet, and that can be envisaged with the blockchain. For example, if, let's say, I've bought that pair of shoes, and for example, and I have the digital product passport associated to it, so I know when I bought it, where does that come from, where was that made, and when, and especially I know because I have a digital certificate of ownership and a digital certificate of authenticity, I know that it's authentic, right? That's also a matter of trust, and that's super important. And then if for some reason I want to change the sole, because after a while it gets a bit torn, I go to care and repair, and this information can be put in the blockchain again, and then again, because we know it exists, we cannot pretend it does not exist. I want to sell them after a while because, I've had another pair of shoes, whatever. It's a whole second life cycle that gets, so much easier with the blockchain, because if I sell them to you, then you'll know they're authentic. And you know who do you buy them from, how many people have been purchasing them, blah, blah, blah. So there are many, many things that can be done with a digital product passport. It's a bit less glamorous than issuing NFTs on marketplaces, and it's a bit less glamorous probably than having just digital collectible or wearables that you can put, wear in metaverses. But here, I think it's a very good use case of how blockchain brings trust and value to the customers at the end of the day, and hopefully it will get a no-brainer. All the brands will get there eventually. I strongly believe in it, and I feel that's really, really just the very beginning. As you said, super early stage, but we're only beginning to see use cases that are starting to develop.
I like that, using blockchain to elevate the user experience by bringing trust, tying this whole thing back into the topic of the panel, which is establishing trust from Web 2 to Web 3. So that's a really good point. It goes far beyond the digital collectible. It's the experience, it's the seamlessness, the frictionlessness that you are all facilitating in different ways. So we got about 4 minutes left, but I'd like to hear just quick final thoughts on how you see the future of the evolution and your role, or the role of your companies in the adoption.
Yeah, one thing that we haven't really spoken about is the fragmentation of blockchain. And if I was a CTO or CEO of a startup, I'd have a major headache. I know Michael is on the panel, but I mean, like, every day it seems there is another layer 1 or a layer 2 or another ZK. And it starts to drive me crazy on the one hand, because there's like so much technology that the average Joe CTO has to really deal with, and I think it's just getting too much. And we're making jokes about, actually, oh man, this is another layer 1. What's the differentiation? Oh, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's more cost efficient. That's been what we've been hearing for the past, 3, 4, 5 years. Every layer 1 that comes across new is cheaper, is faster, is more cost efficient, is more whatever. For me, it becomes like, if I was a CTO, it's super complex. So I think And that's also, I think, one of the reasons why Polygon wants to go interoperable. Of course, it's a long way to go, but I think that's one of the complexities that we're facing. We're having still those silos that are not actually bridgeable. They are bridgeable in a way, but then again, there's a lot of security risks, a lot of exploits, etc. So I think that still is a lot of complexity ahead of blockchain mass adoption. And so unless we have that, I believe that there's still a long way to go. I also want to comment a little bit on the notion that, yes, this is a similar, let's say, growth pattern that we had in the internet, and we're still early, we're in the bear market. To be honest, I've been hearing that too much now. The paper was written in 2009, it's 2023. It feels sometimes a little bit, for me, as an excuse. And I still see applications that are not user-centric. I still see, like a Steve Jobs puts it really well. He says, just start from the customer first. Many engineers that I see outside, that's what I'm saying, my job is to help you avoid mistakes. They're just not thinking from the customer. They're thinking, oh man, this is the latest frigging ZK technology, and then just like at a major enthusiastic moment, but this is not relevant for the customer. They don't just give any moment of positive appreciation for technology. It just needs to work. And when I just logged into my OpenSea with my MetaMask, which is one of the most terrible pieces of software I've seen in the last 3 years, I have actually been scammed with NFT drops. I didn't even know I have got some offers of NFTs that I didn't even know I possess. So what on earth is going on? We need to fix the user experience. We need to fix, everyone cries about this, but it's not really happening to the dynamic and the speed that I at least wish it was. But I think it starts with looking from the customer first, instead of having this enthusiastic moment about the latest ZK and layer 1, layer 2, layer 0, parachain, IBC, subnet, whatnot technology. It doesn't matter, not for the customer.
Right, I think that's good, and this is like a topic for a whole other panel in itself. But yeah, on both sides, the technology is important. It is important to have those enthusiastic moments because it is so new, and we are early, and it might be annoying to hear it, but it's important to give context to people who are just getting involved now. For us, it's frustrating, right? But, relatively early, but I do like the point about you need to build for the customer first and think about the things that we stuck to in the Web 2 world, which is building products for, around market fit, right? So, and UX, UI, it's so important to have a usable, easy interface. So, closing thoughts, Michael and Christian?
Remote first, remote first.
We'll close with you, Michael, yeah?
Sure.
After Christian.
Reddit quietly launched an avatar system. Reddit is a front door to the internet. And they've onboarded now, I think, more than 12 million users into that experience. And it talks not about the technology. It is user-centric, as the panelists just spoke about. And I think the notion of user centricity is critical. There's a reason why VR has taken so long to gain mass adoption, because nobody wants to sit in their house with a massive set of goggles on their face. And I think that by analogy, in the blockchain world, being user-centric, great UX, obfuscate the technology that ultimately underlying is foundational in its security and its reliability is critical, but being user-first with great utility is paramount, and I think that's what will lead the way for the next generation of applications.
Thank you. I think that was a perfect place to close this panel. It's been amazing. Thank you so much to our panelists. Big round of applause, and I really hope to see what you guys develop in the near future.